No matter who you are, change can feel and seem scary. But I believe it's all about how you look at it. You can look at change as being something that's taking away, or you can look at change as an opportunity for growth. And for many people in the media, I believe it's time that we look at change as an opportunity for growth. I'm Brandon Gonez, and we are media production leaders. When I look at this opportunity, I never look at it as a negative. I look at it as we can reach more people. We can bring more people into the fold. We can rebuild trust with communities and audiences who have lost trust in storytellers. Building your own media brand has to start with the essence of, in my opinion, authenticity. Leaving legacy media and moving into the new world of digital media required a different lens to look at how to communicate to audiences, the type of content. It really had to go back to the actual form of communication, the product that people were using to access the content. So traditionally, I came from a space where people would view me delivering them news content via a TV screen. But in the new age of digital media, people consume most of their content on a much smaller screen, on their phones. And one huge difference between a big TV screen and a small phone screen is the phone screen is a lot more personal. You're probably using your phone when you're riding the subway or on the bus, or sitting down in a doctor's office, or in your bed with your hair tied up, or potentially just on the toilet. It's such an intimate time between while you're accessing the content on your phone. And so as a media producer and someone who wants to deliver content via that medium, you have to ask yourself, if it's that intimate, then are you meeting the viewer where they are? And for me, that always meant being your most authentic self. Dropping a bit of patois, for example, which is, Jamaican Creole, in how I would speak. The brand that I wanted to build was a brand just based around who I was as an individual, who I was as a content creator, who I was as a journalist, who I was as a producer. Audiences now drive content and have so much more power than they have ever had before. Media used to be produced by a few different companies in every single country. The purveyors of information, used to be, 3 or 4 different offices in this particular country, in Canada. Think about our big networks, right? Like CTV, Global, CBC, City TV. If you wanted to access those networks, whether that was for entertainment content, news content, it was only those 4 access points you could go through when it comes to televised news. And if you're an audience member and you didn't like the content you were receiving, well, the only other choices you had were the other 3 big players. What is so different now is that the audience can, in real time, give you feedback on the content that you're producing. And they have so many more ways to display and showcase if they like your content and if they hate your content. For example, you like the content, you can literally like that video on the social platform of which you're consuming that video. You can then share that video. You can comment in the comment section, positive or negative. You can do so many things. You can repurpose that content. Audiences right there and then can tell you if they're engaging with it in a positive way, or on the other side of the spectrum, if they're engaging with it in a negative way. And so what does that mean as a media producer? Well, it means that, you can't rely on the fact that um, audiences can't, it's a week later, they're going to write an email and tell you that they don't like this. You're going to find out right there and then, which can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing depending on how you look at it. For me, I look at that as an amazing thing because what it tells you in real time is that the audience either is missing something of what you provided, right? We call that social listening. So an audience member could say, well, why didn't you look at it from this lens? Or why didn't you ask this person for their perspective? Or did you think about including this historical context? And I think as we're producing and creating content in this day and age, social listening is the most important thing because audiences are telling us what they want. That doesn't mean sometimes what they want is correct, but it does mean that even if it's not correct, you can address that in the next piece of content that you produce. And then what does that in turn do? It creates this trust building between you and the audience because they understand that what you're producing is for them, but they also understand that you're listening to them. And for the most part, that's what audiences want. They want to feel, they want to know that they're being listened to. Well, diverse storytelling was literally the premise of why I left Legacy Media to start Gonez Media. I personally felt that there wasn't enough diverse storytelling happening on Legacy Media, in the mainstream media. And a lot of times that is just due to the structure of which mainstream media is built. You go into many newsrooms, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in America, and a lot of people look the same. And if they don't look the same, then they might come from the same general income bracket. And so what does that do sometimes? Well, sometimes it just means that there's only a certain lens of which stories are told and viewed. So when something transpires in the world, we all factor in our different lived experiences, where we come from, our racial background, our economic background, where do we live, for example. That all skews how we look at a story and then how we tell a story. And so if you have all the same type of people, right, or there's such a homogenous culture within your newsroom, then you're going to lack that diverse range of storytelling. So for me and for my company, what was super, super important was to ensure that we had a diverse range of storytellers. Not just people in front of the camera, but also behind the camera. People who came from all different walks of life. People who come from all different parts of the city. Because it's those experiences that help us better relate to our audience. The word disrupting, to me, it's super, super interesting. And I'll tell you why. Because while, people like me might be disrupting a landscape, I don't necessarily look at it as disrupting. Now, I do believe people who are being disrupted might look at it as a negative connotation, but if you're in the driver's seat or in the passenger seat of disrupting any particular industry, most people don't look at it as disrupting. I look at it as evolving, right? You're evolving something. Because we're still taking the premise of storytelling, right? Storytelling is still the foundation of what we do. The difference is where those stories are being told, how those stories are being told, who is now telling those stories, and who is making the decisions to say, yes, this story should move forward, or no. What really has happened with new media and with access to platforms like social platforms is that it has democratized the ability to tell stories. And I think that is so liberating, especially for communities and people who for so long may have felt their stories have not been told, or their stories were never told authentically, transparently, with full contextualized information. And I think as soon as our industry as a whole starts to shift our mindset from looking at disruption as being a negative rather than being more as a positive, like evolution, we are evolutionizers, then we can fully embrace the opportunity that is right in front of us.